Does anyone have a question?
Stuart, can you, even though you do talk about this a lot, can you just talk about transcendence? Because you usually say slightly different things and it's nice to hear.
Well, I spoke about this yesterday or last time we had a class, yesterday. No, Monday. Look, I mean, the best metaphor for it is, really the title of a book I wrote called, A Lotus Flower in Muddy Waters. A lotus flower, in order to grow, has to really root itself in mud, in muddy water. And it transforms that muddy water into nourishment that allows its petals to bloom on the surface of the water. Now, this is a very good metaphor for transcendence because basically we all kind of live in muddy waters. We have health problems, we have relationship problems, we have economic problems, and we have to swim in that water and learn how to be as intelligent as a lotus flower, to transform it into petals that open and embrace the sun. It's transcendence. It's going above our condition, not wallowing in our condition, but learning how to use whatever goes on in our life as a means of developing ourselves, as a means of transcending, the negativity, the unhappiness, whatever it is, transforming it. Better word is than transcendence is transforming the mud into a lotus flower. To me, it's basically all about that. Because when you transcend something, you go above it, you get free of it, you rise above it. Your consciousness develops inside where it can truly go above the things that are keeping you, trapped, imprisoned, whatever, abandoned, whatever condition you feel or people feel in their lives. So look, that's what this meditation is all about. It's maybe one of the most important things I ever learned from Rudy, how to transform my muddy water into a Stuart who has grown to serve God. And trust me, there was enough muddy water when I was a kid that I thought I was going to drown, And the universe was kind to me. It introduced me to Rudy, put me through hell for 25 years, but I finally met him. And at least I was smart enough then to say, okay, I have found somebody who can help me transform all of my garbage, all of my tension into a spiritual life. And when that tension is transformed into a spiritual life, we reach a level of transcendence. We go above the mundane. We go above the ordinary. We go above platitudes. We rise above everything that truly is a byproduct of people living on this earth. We become a child of God. We become one with God. It's transcending karma. It's transcending this whole mishmash of, labyrinth of tension and problems that manifest in the lives of just about every human being. And for whatever reason, we have to go through that. The lotus flower has to be born in muddy water. You know? And we also have to go through whatever we have to go through in order to learn about life and to learn how to transform it. That it's not positive and negative, it's just energy. And it's only negative because that's the way we perceive it. You know, as I talked a lot last week about how spirit is just energy. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just energy that flows from the fountainhead of the universe into every human being in the form of Shakti. You know, how it's used in life depends upon the development of a person inside themselves. So we take this Shakti, this creative force that is giving birth to everything in this universe. And depending upon how we've been conditioned in life and how our inner workings are developed, that's how we use that energy. And if people are neurotic inside, they're crazy, they're depressed, they're unhappy, that's how they're going to use the energy. And so it gets back to our responsibility to open and develop a chakra system that's strong enough so that that energy flows through us and it manifests as love, as joy, as sweetness, kindness. That's also transcendence. It's going above the ordinary way that people usually live in life, which is dumping their garbage on each other. So, you know, transcendence has many meanings, you know, but I think its most profound meaning is just rising above everything that imprisons us in our karma, rising above our karma, which, strange as it might sound, is our karma, to rise above whatever we are. And there's joy in this, there's love in this, there's freedom in this. And one just has to remember that lotus flower. I mean, look, I was kind of born in muddy water. I mean, I was born in the tenements of the Bronx. I don't know if any of you know about the South Bronx. Excuse me. It's a pretty depressed place. And I had to fight my way out of that. Rudy was born in, excuse me 1 second. Rudy was born in East New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant, you know, it's a slum. Especially when he was younger, my God, you know. When I was younger, the South Bronx was, you know, verging on a, I remember I wrote a book called Three Rivers. And the first section of the book was about kids growing up in the South Bronx. And I said to myself, Stuart, you should go up there and see it. And I'll never forget that experience. Driving down the street that I was born on, looking at the building that I lived in for 18 years, that was a burned out shell, completely charred, totally empty. Making a left turn on 173rd Street and going down to Longfellow Avenue, making another left turn, driving to the corner, having to stop at a red light. And there were 4 of us in the car. And suddenly from nowhere, like a dozen little African-American girls came out and started giggling and dancing around our car and pointing at us as if we had just landed from Mars. It's the kind of thing I used to experience in little villages in India, where you walk through and they never saw a white person before. And they all come out and they just gape at you and stare at you and giggle. And, you know, and I'm talking, I was a half hour away from Manhattan, you know, one of the most sophisticated places to live in the world, you know, in the neighborhood that I was raised in. I mean, it was extraordinary. I'll never forget that. And when I was raised in that neighborhood, it seemed like the entire world. You know, when I drove through it that time, it was so tiny. It was so tiny. And it was kind of like that lotus flower in muddy water. This is what nurtured the first 18 years of my life. And if it taught me nothing else, it taught me that I needed to do something extraordinary with my life. And not just grow up and live in some kind of normal way, you know? It was truly, again, the lotus flower that emerged from muddy waters. And we're all that way. Once your heart opens, you're a lotus flower. Once there's love inside you, there's joy inside you, there's gratitude to God for the life you've been given, you become a lotus flower. And it turns out a lotus flower is the symbol of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. And just to finish up this, all of it is about transcendence. It's about going above. Getting free. Does anyone else have a question?
Thank you, Stuart. I
You're
just want to say my dad grew up in the South Bronx and I grew up at the tip of Coney Island. So everything you said was so perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Rudy grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant in East New York, you know? I mean, now it's a high-priced place to live with all those beautiful brownstones that they have there. When he was a kid, it was an absolute slum. And I was always grateful for the neighborhood I grew up in because there was such a mixture of people there. So many different kinds of people, races, religions. You know, you had to grow up colorblind living in that neighborhood. You know, and I used to be a pretty decent basketball player when I was younger. And I used to I used to love to play with all the black guys, you know, that I knew because they were great. You know, these guys were terrific ball players. And I really enjoyed playing with them. But they also came out of the slums 5 blocks away from where I used to live. Does anyone else have a question they would like? I remember years ago, they made a movie called Fort Apache. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it was about a police station in the Bronx. And when I was a kid, you know, the police came to my neighborhood and rounded us all up, and, you know, and we had a basketball team that used to play in that police station. There's a movie about this place that was like living in, it was like hell, you know, what used to go on there. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? And yet a lot of my friends, when I was younger, shouldn't go on, you know, they wanted to get out of the Bronx. Some of them became hugely successful and very famous, you know, and I always respected that they could fight their way out of that neighborhood and become hugely successful in their life. It was always an amazing, I always had so much respect for that people can do it. It's not that they were having spiritual lives, but they became, you know, they fought their way out of that neighborhood and became hugely successful in their lives. And it just told me, I mean, anyone can do it if they have the ambition and the guts and the desire to do it. They can fight their way out of anything. They can transcend any situation. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions. You know, I really love these classes, and, you know, and it's hard, it would be hard to do them without you all. So God bless you for being here. Thank you. And I, you know, look, part of it is sharing my life, talking about things I've been through in my life. And I have no problems with doing that because I learned from that also. So bless you all and thank you. And there'll be a class tomorrow evening. And have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you,
We can't do
Stuart.
it without
Good
you
night.
either.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're
Good
welcome.
night.
Good night.